This is 5P Podcast, the first international regenerative medicine and anti-aging podcast that will give you the tools to age with the greatest health, wellness, and appearance. It is directed by Professor Dr. Jaime Rodriguez Quintosa and Professor Dr. Debbie Pinsky. We welcome you to the 8th episode. We are your hosts, Sandra Sola and Professor Carlos Galante.
We are at the headquarters of Jerry's Productions Wave Smith Studios, the podcast accelerator that walks you through the steps to create a successful podcast from scratch. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5P Podcast to learn more about this topic. As you well know, we have with us the 5P Podcast Ambassador, Professor Dr. Debbie Pinsky, the Queen of Anti-Aging Medicine and President of the World Council for Preventive, Regenerative and Anti-Aging Medicine, WOCPM. Welcome, Professor.
Hola, thank you, Sandra and Professor Carlos, and also all our guests. Best regards from Jerry's Pinsky Tower, Jakarta, Indonesia. And today we have young, famous, very smart doctor, Dr. Karl Attieh, is a PharmD. He's graduate from Massachusetts College of Pharmacy, Boston, United States of America, and ongoing PhD at Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology of Professor Dr. Vladimir Khavinson in St. Petersburg, Russia. And Dr. Karl also was a chairperson and lecturer at the first international WOCPM International Conference in Bali, Indonesia, 2023, and member of the World Council of Anti-Aging Medicine in Paris. Young age, but wow. Dr. Karl, as usual, welcome, and our guests want to know, why did you decide to dedicate yourself to preventive and regenerative medicine? Please explain to us.
First of all, thank you for this introduction and thank you for having me on this podcast. It's my complete pleasure to be here. I would like to send my best to Professor Jaime and Professor Debbie and of course to our great host Sandra and Professor Carlos. To answer your question, I decided to dedicate myself to preventive and regenerative medicine because I have witnessed all the wonders that it does since I was a kid. My mother, Dr. Sonia Rabani, was my first inspiration. I saw her achieve everything she did in the field of preventive and regenerative medicine. You could say I was flooded with info, with cases, with breakthroughs and knowledge since a very young age. And thanks to her, she made me fall in love with what I do, and this is why I chose it.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Attieh. During your lecture in the first health conference in Bali 2023, you talked about peptides bioregulators, and you're doing your PhD at the Petersburg Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology. How did you come to specialize in bioregulatory peptides?
Well, it's actually very simple. Professor Vladimir Khavinson, God rest his soul, and Professor Svetlana Trofimova. I got to meet them for the first time in my home country of Lebanon. Professor Khavinson gave an incredible conference and he talked and introduced us about bioregulatory peptides. And I'm sure everyone that attended and listened to Professor Khavinson will never forget this day. And because of him, I knew instantly that this was something I wanted to pursue more in depth. Yes.
And for those who are not familiar, what exactly are bioregulatory peptides and how do they differ from other types of peptides?
So peptides in general, they occur naturally in every cell of our body. They are made out of 2 or more amino acids, and amino acids are the basic units of all our organic matter. Peptides in general play a very important role in the normal functioning of the human body, and they act as building blocks of cells and tissues like hormones, toxins, antibiotics, enzymes. The first one discovered and the most famous, for example, is insulin. Now, peptide bioregulators, they communicate with the specific section of the DNA, activating genes for cellular regeneration. So basically, their main job is the regulation of gene expression, which will lead to protein synthesis. Bioregulatory peptides impact the overall biochemical and physiological functioning of the particular organ in which they are active.
Wow, it's amazing, Dr. Karl, and I like also to tell our guests, not many students in the world of Professor Khavinson, very rare, and this peptide very unique is also help my father and many patients in Indonesia to recovery from their diabetic, stroke. So this is really something incredible in the world. Thank you, Dr. Karl, for explaining about that. And we have another question. What are the most notable clinical application of these bioregulatory peptides in modern medicine?
The most notable clinical applications, I would say that treating the pineal gland and brain in general, which will restore, first of all, our circadian clock, which has many positive implications on the body. Restoring our biological clock will lead to restore hormone levels, neurotransmitters, so which will basically help in Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, for example, and other neurodegenerative diseases or chronic diseases. I'm sure we'll discuss them more in depth later. But I wanted to highlight a specific clinical application here, which is in retinitis pigmentosa, where the cells in the retina start to break down slowly with time, causing vision loss and other visual symptoms. Retinitis pigmentosa is a genetic disease, so people are born with it, and it's very hard to treat. But brain and vessel peptides as a combination have shown great results in this hard-to-treat disease, amongst others.
Okay, so before you were talking about Professor Khavinson, and could you tell us about his top discoveries in the field of bioregulatory peptides and how these discoveries have evolved over time?
Of course. Everything started during the Cold War. There were Russian military serving in nuclear submarines, and they started noticing that they were showing aspects of premature aging because of the harsh conditions they were in. And as we all know, during Cold War, this wasn't acceptable for Russia. They had to be number one. So Professor Khavinson was charged in helping find a cure for this premature aging. He started by examining research of very famous Professor Vladimir Dillman that were done in the 60s. They basically talked about how low molecular weight regulatory peptide and their role in protein synthesis. Protein synthesis will automatically lead to tissue regeneration and restoration of age-damaged organs, which was perfect for these submarines. So Professor Khavinson assembled a team, and one of their first findings was that healthy individuals with their bodily faculties and organs working at optimal performance had to have a 42% of bioregulatory peptides present in the organ. So after that, they discovered that the main goal was to find a way to restore this 42% percentage of bioregulatory peptides in these submariners in order to repair tissue, glands, organs at a molecular DNA level. So they started, and after years of research, they invented the technology to isolate low molecular weight peptide fractions from animal organs and tissue. This is what gave birth to peptide bioregulators and started the peptide revolution. If I had to mention, I just want to mention one in particular is epitalon, the peptide of the pineal gland, which studies, this is after years of research, studies have shown that it can decrease mortality, expand lifespan, and restore hormonal level, most importantly melatonin. And in the early days, scientists were astonished when an experimental animal was able to deliver an offspring even after it experienced menopause. This is to show you the really astonishing work that peptides can do.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. Wow, it's amazing. So there has been a lot of talk about the potential of bioregulatory peptides in promoting longevity. Could you explain how they contribute to health and healthy aging?
Okay, of course. So we know that we all have our human age, but each and any one of us also has their own biological age, our true age, that we can measure with different tests. But for example, let's say someone is living an unhealthy life and they are 40 years old. This is their age, but their biological age might be 55, for example. Khavinson peptides have shown to decrease our biological age, making us, in fact, younger. And this is real anti-aging. This is what longevity is all about, acting from the inside to the outside, at the DNA and cellular level, reaching our organs and maybe our outer aesthetic physique.
Great. Wow. And what about the research? I mean, what types of scientific studies support the use of bioregulatory peptides regarding their efficacy and safety for humans?
Okay, so Khavinson peptides has more than 40 years of research and evidence-based studies. There are more than 1,000 peer-reviewed articles in journals around the United States, Switzerland, Russia, amongst others. But the most important and fascinating fact is that during these 40 years, all these clinical studies, we had zero side effect recorded. Zero. Not one. Yes.
That's incredible, for sure.
Basically, due to the nature of these peptides, their low molecular weight.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So we remind you that we are interviewing Dr. Karl Attieh, PharmD, in Massachusetts College of Pharmacy, Boston, ongoing PhD at the Institute of Bioregulation and Gerontology of Professor Dr. Vladimir Khavinson in St. Petersburg. He works at DermaPro, Lebanon. If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5P Podcast and follow Dr. Attieh's work on his social media at DermaPro, Lebanon. So, we were talking about these bioregulatory peptides. What role do they play in the treatment of chronic diseases, such as diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and neurodegenerative diseases?
Peptides have shown to expand lifespan in all of the diseases mentioned. But concerning diabetes, let's talk about diabetes. There are multiple studies on non-human that have established beneficial results. but there is currently one big study being done on human to establish one and for all how pineal gland peptides positively affect and cure people with diabetes. Like this study, I'm basically just gonna read the abstract. This is done in 2022. It's an outstanding study that talks about the prospects and use of dipeptides in patients with chronic atrophic gastritis, for example. And also, the study also done in 2022, if you want, I can share it, send the link, there's not a problem, that talks about the peptide correction of tissue hypoxia in diabetic foot syndrome. And the good thing about peptides is that they are used on targeted organs. For example, peptides of the pineal gland, vessels, and brain have also shown significant improvement in the diabetic neuropathy. We can see a link between the pineal gland, the brain, and the vessels in improving patients with diabetic neuropathy. And the last one I'm going to talk about is another dipeptide, thymogen. It's an activator of tissue oxygenation factors, which decreases in patients with diabetes. It's very important, oxygenation in diabetics.
Wow. Could you delve into the use of bioregulatory peptides in tissue regeneration and regenerative medicine?
Yes, like as we mentioned, peptides' main mechanism of action is in switching gene function to increase protein synthesis, which protein synthesis is the most important factor in regenerative medicine. So to answer your question, you can say that bioregulatory peptides play a crucial role in tissue regeneration and regenerative medicine. It really is at the core of this field.
Okay.
And is there any evidence about how can these kind of peptides influence the immune system, and what potential benefits do they have in this field?
Of course, they influence the immune system directly by supporting and regenerating the number one organ of immunity, which is the thymus, which is responsible for the production and maturation of immune cells, of T cells. You have peptides like Vilon, Thymogen, Nemorex that have shown great result in regenerating the thymus and improving immunity as a whole in the body.
That's
Great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Karl. And I think this peptide is this is like one big achievement in the world, how this peptide can improve our body regulation, because so natural. And I have a question. What are the most common forms of administration for this? I use usually with the capsule and the intravenous, but what are the most common forms of administration for bioregulatory peptides? And according to your experience, and Dr. Sonia also, of course, because I think this is one big dermatology and anti-aging center. I can say the biggest in Lebanon, which is you have so many famous VIP people come there. And what is the most, which one is the most effective forms in your experience and Dermapro in Lebanon?
Yes, thank you. First of all, you can find peptides basically in different forms. It depends on the patient case, the patient profile, why he is or they want to take peptides. You can find them in oral or sublingual capsules like Epitide, for example. You can find them in oral spray like Nemorex or Epitalon. sub-Q or intramuscular injection as well. But I'm sure that the most effective one is, of course, intravenous use. But it also is the most expensive one. But definitely, to answer your question, it is the most effective.
Okay, so you were talking, depending on the patient, we do this, we do that. So in your practice, how is the treatment personalized to meet the specific needs of every patient?
Okay, so step one is we draw blood from the patient and we send it to the Gerontology Institute in St. Petersburg for analysis and to provide an individualized treatment exclusive for each patient, their need, their profile, their test, their results, etc. After all the analysis, a protocol is given, an individualized protocol is given to each patient, and each patient basically will have their own protocol and they will follow it, taking into consideration their results from the blood test and also their lifestyle. If sometimes it has to be condensed, sometimes people are not free to do it for 1 week or 10 days. So the patient's profile and their lab results play basically a role in choosing the correct protocol.
Mm-hmm. And what are the main challenges and limitations currently in this kind of research and clinical use of bioregulatory peptides? You say that they are extremely safe, but is there any challenge or limitation? It seems like it's very too much too much good, you know?
Yeah.
Too
good to be true. Yeah.
Of course, there are limitations, and the first one that comes to mind is, first of all, the most sought over peptides come from natural origins. They've been naturally isolated from calves. So naturally, one challenge is that those calves are not infinite. There is a limited number of them able to provide a certain amount of peptides, of course, following the highest standards of ethics and safety. And with the increasing demand today and tomorrow, the supply will most probably decrease. And I think this will lead to the use of synthetic peptides over natural origins because of the ethical and safety and limitation present.
Yeah, it makes sense. What future advancements and developments do you expect to see in the field of bioregulatory peptides in the next 5 or 10 years?
First of all, I expect peptides to become more commercial, to be more commercialized in a few years. And as I mentioned, that means that a synthetic form will have to replace the natural form. But I see, and I am seeing peptides being more implemented in more medical protocols around the world. Professor Khavinson has left a very, very, very special team behind, and they are more than capable of carrying the torch. I can see peptides being implemented in a lot more protocols, like the basic protocols, very, very soon around the world.
Mm-hmm. Could you share some testimonials or successful stories from patients who have experienced significant improvements with the use of bioregulatory peptides?
Yes, it's a funny story actually we had at Dermapro. One day, this priest walked in on a wheelchair. He was relatively old and had arthrosis, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes. He was basically on a wheelchair, and he was really, really sure that he wanted to do peptides. We tried to tell him that don't expect miracles with the peptides, like control your expectations. But he was very insistent, he wanted to do, so we said, okay, we gave him his protocol, and after a month, the same priest walked into Dermapro, and everyone was surprised. He could walk again. He went to Italy. He started flying again. He didn't use the wheelchair anymore.
Wow.
And after that, all his friends from the monastery started calling us. They wanted to do a protocol. I'm saying this won't happen every time, but it
Yes.
happens. It happens.
And he was like, I told you it would work.
Yeah, this story I will never forget.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Karl. Because I like the ethical what Dr. Karl used, like control your expectation.
Yes.
But this peptide is really, I can say, miracle, wonderful. I have another experience actually with my father. I make some research with Professor Khavinson in 2016, I think, and the use, like Dr. Karl say, is not only intravenous, but they also produce now for the nanopeptide for the face, which is a nanomolecule also, and the research about this neurodegenerative, I think neuroprotective, also have some research on that. And I remember Dr. Karl, my father, which is also have diabetic, and you see it's very difficult to cure. And then we use this peptide pancragen, the intravenous combined with the capsule, and it's amazing. Of course, integrative medicine we combine, but after this peptide, it's really amazing. He even didn't wear the thick glasses anymore. So this is funny, and let's make everybody start to, wow, what is this? Because it's so natural, like Dr. Karl explained. And another research I remember, Professor Khavinson showed us, is we measure the telomere of the patient before. This is what I do to Vice President of Indonesia, Dr. Yusuf Kala. He was maybe one of the first person in the world, which is 2 times Vice President, 1 times and peptide, and then do the anti-aging therapy, and then next become Vice President again. So I inject these peptides for the brain. And it was amazing until today. Every candidate for president always come to him, and he talk like he's 82 now, but he talk like a young man, and the brain working like a young man. So I hope this
His
experience,
biological age.
Wow.
biological age getting younger, and the
Yes.
telomere measure 15 years younger.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I
It's
have,
like magic.
Yes, Sandra and Professor Carlos. What Dr. Karl shared is not like you said, we said before, too good to be truth, but it's really, really truth. And we will do another more research in the future. Finally, Dr. Karl, what advice would you like to give to other medical professionals interested in this, incorporating bioregulatory peptide in their practice?
I would personally advise all the medical professionals to incorporate bioregulatory peptides in some of them, their protocols, because it is evidence-based and there really is no side effect, and it's the regenerative properties are proven and well documented. I advise them to try it once and wait for the results.
Thank you, Dr. Karl. Today we interviewed Dr. Karl Attieh, PharmD, graduate from Massachusetts College of Pharmacy, Boston, United States of America, ongoing PhD at Institute of Bioregulatory and Gerontology of Professor Dr. Vladimir Khavinson in St. Petersburg, Russia. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And remember, we look forward to see you at the WCPM Congress, International Congress in Bali, 2024. It's going to be in Discovery Kartika Plaza, a 5-star beautiful hotel heritage in Bali, Indonesia, from 8 to 10 November 2024. Thank you again, Dr. Karl Attieh, being with
Thank
us
you.
in
Thank
the
you.
Jerry's production in this 5P podcast.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and supporting this initiative. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5P Podcast. If you want to learn how to make a successful podcast, subscribe to at Websmith Studios on YouTube. See you next time, and remember, take care of yourself today to defy time tomorrow. Thank you.